We have more news this week about the Big Finish 60th anniversary Doctor Who celebration, Once and Future. This is going to be an epic multi-Doctor extravaganza, which we previously knew would star Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston, and David Tennant as their respective Doctors. But we got some more news over the past couple of days at the Gallifrey 1 convention, which happened a few days ago in LA, that we're going to be getting some new guest stars for Doctor Who Once and Future, which is going to be a 8-part epic adventure, which is going to be taking place over basically most of 2023 for the 60th anniversary. We're going to be seeing Michelle Gomez return as Missy, Nicola Walker as Livchenka, Georgia Tennant as the Doctor's daughter, Michelle Ryan as Lady Christina, Camille Coduri as Jackie Tyler. We also got Madame Vastra, Jenny, Strax, Sadie Miller as Sarah Jane Smith, Christopher Naylor as Harry Sullivan, Ken Bones as the General, Beth Chalmers as Veclin. So a very massive, awesome, fun cast for the 60th anniversary. But we also did get official confirmation that the Doctor Impressionists, Stephen Noonan as the first Doctor, Michael Troughton as the second Doctor, and Tim Treloar as the third Doctor would be part of the box set as well. David Warner would be there as the Unbound Doctor, the final performance that he recorded before his passing last year. We do know at a convention that Christopher Eccleston did record some scenes with David Warner, presumably for this. But this is the one that I was really interested in. I predicted, or I said I hoped that this happened, and I expected it to happen on live stream over the past few weeks, that I was hoping that the Doctor Impressionist Noonan, Troughton, Treloar would be playing their respective Doctors for this set, because I think they've been doing a terrific job. The only Doctor that seems to be missing is Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor. We know that the beginning of Once and Future, it does start in the Time War, and then the Doctor's about to regenerate, and then he goes through all of his other lives, or something to that effect. But yeah, it feels like that Stolen Earth meme, or everybody except Carly, Jonathan Carley is the War Doctor. I hope he's in it. He's as far as I'm concerned, he's just as legitimate a Doctor amongst this lineup as the rest of them are. But the one that I want to focus on is Stephen Noonan, who has been the first Doctor for Big Finish for the past year. He made his debut last year with the Outlaws, along with Lauren Cornelius as Dodo, and this was a terrific box set. It's currently on sale at the moment because they've got a Gallifrey 1 sale at Big Finish. It's a couple of quid cheaper. But honestly, the first Doctor Adventures, The Outlaws, was one of my favourite box sets of 2022. The miniaturist is really good, and that seems to be a lot of other people's favourite story from the set. But I adored The Outlaws. The Outlaws is a hysterically funny historical romp through 13th century Lincolnshire, and it's basically like the Romans, but funnier. It's like the historical bits from the Time Meddler, but better. The Outlaws is an incredible listen, and I had such a great time with it, and it's a terrific debut for Stephen Noonan as the first Doctor. That was basically a proof of concept for the first Doctor range, and with the success of that, and Stephen Noonan in the chat. Hello, Stephen. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that Gallifrey 1 has treated you well. I hope you're doing good. So we're going to be talking about the second Doctor Who First Doctor Adventures, The Demon Song, which is, we've got The Demon Song by Bob Ayers and The Inkerton Incident by Nicholas Briggs. Also directing this as well is Nicholas Briggs. And when I saw the credit Nicholas Briggs, I thought, okay, so what's going on here? Nicholas Briggs mainly gets involved when there's like a big change to the box set, and we'll talk about that later, but it does seem, if the ending of the Inkerton Incident is any indication, that there are going to be a future set of adventures and some changes for the first Doctor adventures going forward, kind of like akin to the Beyond War game set, which Nicholas Briggs also had a big handle on. The first Doctor adventures, The Demon Song, we've got two stories. Firstly, The Demon Song by Bob Ayers, and this sees the first Doctor and Dodo Chaplet going to modern day Camden. And what's interesting is that you see the first Doctor, or you hear the first Doctor in the story, in a setting that you wouldn't normally expect, because he's in 2020's England during the pandemic, and or like shortly post-pandemic, post-COVID pandemic, and people are wearing masks on, and the Doctor's like, okay, what year are we in? People, judging by the masks and the phones people have got, we're post-pandemic in 21st century England. Oh, you kind of don't expect that from the first Doctor, because when they went in the modern day in the 1960s, it was 1960s London. It's like the first Doctor is in the future, but it's a more accurate version of the future that was initially predicted in the 1960s. The Doctor and Dodo quickly gets separated in Camden Town. It's a massive, bustling, multicultural place. Dodo gets separated because she's distracted by a song that a busker is playing in the street. People are singing, choirs are singing it. It's the same melody, but it seems to be hypnotizing and corrupting people. One of these people who have been taken away is the boyfriend of Archie, played by Bhavnishna Palmer. And along to help with the case as well is Daniel Diarth, played by Henry Knott, because he is a paranormal investigator who thinks that the First Doctor is intruding on his patch. Let's play a clip from the Demon Song.
What are you doing here? This is my patch.
Your patch? Your patch? Whatever is the fella talking about?
Come on, Doctor. Guy's a freak.
Oh, Doctor, is it? Whatever he's told you, I'm the man you should be talking to.
Why would I want to talk to you? What do you know? Huh? How long have you been there? Do you know where Paul is?
Eh?
My boyfriend. He's gone missing. And this man's friend,
Dodo.
Yeah. Do you know anything about it?
Eh?
Ugh! Take off those rubbish headphones.
Oh, get off! Get off! I need those. Oh, you don't understand. No. The demon song. La 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 la.
It's the tune. The tune the busker is playing. He's frightened of it. Let him go, Archie. Come away, young man. Come away.
You've got no idea what you're dealing with.
What are you on about?
Here, my card.
Daniel Diarth, demon hunter, xenobiologist, paranormal investigator, parapsychological explorer, and psychic adventurer. Quite a curriculum vitae.
This says Daniel Death.
It's pronounced D-Art. Note the apostrophe. And you're the Doctor, eh? Nice.
Yes. And this young lady is,
Running out of patience. Do you know what happened to my boyfriend or not?
You may recognise Bhavnishna Palmer. She was in another Big Finish set, the 12th Doctor Chronicles last year, but she was also Sonia Khan, Yasmin Khan's sister in the Chibnall era of Doctor Who. I like how she's becoming a Big Finish regular. She's really good in this, as is Henry Knott as Daniel Diarth. But what I will say for the Demon Song is that I think that as good as Lauren Cornelius is in the role, I think Dodo does draw the short straw in this story. She is sort of sidelined as she is taken away by the Demon Song and trying to figure out what's happening behind the scenes there. She's been hypnotized. Other people have been hypnotized as well, and she's sort of with them. This is definitely a story. It's a three-hander with the First Doctor, Daniel, and Archie trying to figure out what's been happening in modern-day Camden. And I think that it's a very good, breezy story. It's a two-parter, so it has to be breezy just for the sake of the pacing. But it's just a really novel concept to have the First Doctor in modern day Camden in this setting. It's just an environment that you just would never ever see him in, and that's like the biggest novelty of the set. Like in the second story, the Incident Incident, this is also another setting that we typically don't see the First Doctor in, or many other classic Doctors in general. The Demon Song as a box set is basically taking the First Doctor and putting him in environments and in settings with casts of characters that he typically would not be associated with during his TV tenure, and I really expect how they are pushing the boat out in that regards to the character. Because, for example, like the Miniaturist is like a celestial toy maker, like abstract type of story. The Outlaws, I drew comparisons earlier with the Romans and with the Time Meddler, is a historical comedic romp. Whereas the two stories in the Demon Song, they're very different from what you'd expect from the First Doctor. It's why I think that even if the First Doctor isn't a Doctor that you traditionally gravitate towards on the screen, this is still a box set which you might find a lot of redeeming value for, even if the First Doctor isn't like your favourite. I think that the fact that they've pushed the boat out to this extent is really admirable, and it shows a great statement of intent for these First Doctor adventures, that they're not resting on their laurels like they did with the Second Doctor for Beyond War Games last year. We're going to be pushing them out in more interesting territory. That's great. Big Finish could just be coasting with like some season 3 or season 4 recreations, but they're not. They're taking the characters in much more interesting directions. And hello, Lily. Thank you for being here in fashionably late. Hope you're doing good. Stephen Noonan's in the chat as well. Bhavnisha's brilliant in it. Henry's bloody hilarious. He is. Yeah, he's a lot of fun, especially I want to say fumble that happens towards the end of the story involving the guitar. That's all I'll say. The Demon Song is a good two-parter. I think that Dodo is sidelined a little bit to it, but the cast are great across the board. There's a great soundscape, and it's really moody and atmospheric. I like the way that it builds. I like the way that the sense of scale of the story escalates over, particularly its second part, and the directions that it goes in. What happens over the course of the serial. Also, I think maybe we should have got more into Dodo's headspace a little bit. You kind of got the sense towards the end that she was like kind of really affected by the events of the story, but we don't really spend an awful lot of time there. That's a little disappointing, but the Demon Song is a really solid modern day a supernatural paranormal investigation thriller story. Really good stuff. And also the second story, The Incident Incident. The story opens with the first Doctor and Dodo. Something attacks them in the time vortex and they have to do an emergency landing. They land in a small coastal village in 1947. It is post-World War II. There's some suspicions going around with the status of the allyship between England, America, the Soviet Union, etc., etc. And we also have a American agent who is there to investigate. She arrives on a bike. Virginia Hancock, played by Genevieve Gaunt, who's really great in the story. But basically, the Inchiton Incident sees the first Doctor and Dodo not only trying to figure out what's happening in the town of Inchiton, which has had some massive incident happen, some big explosions, some big heat signatures. They've locked the whole town off, and they're trying to say that it's an unexploded Nazi bomb. But the Americans and the Soviets are not quite convinced, and the Doctor and Dodo are right in the middle of it. Let's play a clip from the Inchiton Incident when the Doctor and Dodo meet Virginia.
Hey, look! Doctor!
Eh? What? What is it, child?
Back up the road! Back up the way we came!
Good gracious. A solitary cyclist. Well, we must flag them down.
Hello? Hey! Can you stop a minute, please? Doctor, I don't think they're going to stop.
What? Nonsense. I command you to stop, madam.
Doctor, she's not...
Stop, I say.
Well, hell, you're one determined old-timer. Were you gonna poke that stick of yours through my spokes, huh?
My dear lady, I was simply most anxious that you should stop.
And hang my right-of-way, is that it?
You're American.
And don't tell me you don't like how us Yanks left you to fight the war on your own and then came in to claim all the glory.
I beg your pardon?
The war?
You know, the one against the Nazis.
Oh, that war. But that was years ago.
Child, what my friend Dorothea meant is, it feels like years to us.
You serious? 2 years isn't that long.
1947 then.
1947?
Don't tell me you stopped me to ask what year it was.
What? No, of course not.
No, of course not.
That would be preposterous.
Thing is, I wanted the clip to play on for a little bit longer because the awkward laughter goes on for like another 10 seconds, but I thought I might have been pushing it a little bit. So as you probably hear from that clip, Stephen Noonan does a terrific job as the First Doctor. And I'm not just saying that because he's in the chat watching right now. Hi, Stephen. I said in my initial review of The Outlaws when I reviewed it last year that Stephen did a great job at capturing just the spirit of the William Hartnell's First Doctor, even if it wasn't a like perfect one-to-one impression. But I think as he's doing it, the more he's doing it and he's embracing the character and the role, the more accurate and the better he's doing. And I don't... That sounds like I didn't think he was doing a good job in the first place. I think he was, but I think here he's really hit his stride in it. There are some times when I'm listening to this and it's like, yeah, this is the First Doctor. This is Hartnell, who has somehow been exhumed and he's now doing stuff for Big Finish Productions. Like that aside that he did in that clip was like 1947. I felt it in my bones. I could like sort of imagine whether it's Hartnell or Stephen in the recording booth, like hands on his lapels. I felt it in my garters. It was a really terrific performance across the board, and I love what he does as well in part 4 when he does take it the performance down like to a much lower level, like without getting into spoilers or specifics or anything, where he does like an aggressive whisper when he's sort of like laying down the stakes of what's happening and the directions the character goes in for a pretty surprising part 4, the direction that the story goes in. how this initially started off as a espionage post-World War II thriller with England, with America, with the Soviets, and then it becomes actually this could be the future of the First Doctor range, and this is like a backdoor pilot to that. Really interesting stuff. I do think that because of that narrative direction change, the actual incident, the main A plot, gets a little bit lost in the shuffle. There's like a pretty quick resolution to that in part 4. Basically, all it takes is for the Doctor and Dodo to reunite, and then they fix the plot, more or less. It does seem a little bit like the plot is sort of like spinning its wheels until it can get to that reuniting. Thankfully, the lead up to that is interesting. I think that the First Doctor finds a great foil in Virginia. I don't think in the classic series, to my knowledge, I've not finished the Hartnell era yet, there really isn't a dynamic in the classic series like there is between the First Doctor and Virginia. That's a real great like dynamic, and how they butt heads with each other. There's a great line when they climb to the top of a hill, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't think a man your age would be able to climb that," and he's like, "Oh, you'd be so shocked if I told you my actual age," which, stuff like that's really funny, and I think Stephen Noonan does great. I don't know if they did record those scenes together, but they do have a great rapport, a great back and forth, and unlike the Demon Song story, I do think that Dodo gets a lot more to do. I think that Dodo's involvement in the Inchiton incident is a lot more dynamic, a lot more interesting, gives Lauren Cornelius an awful lot more to do. There's a presence on the base which is hypnotizing people, how she combats that and deals with other people who've been hypnotized around her and the espionage. She gets a lot more to do. Lauren Cornelius is really strong as Dodo. She's a real great companion, and also just a great contrast to the Fourth Doctor as well. This young, rambunctious Yorkshire lass. I think the First Doctor and Dodo are getting a second lease on life that really wasn't, unfortunately, there properly for the TV series. Unfortunately, because of behind the scenes elements and just the lifespan of Dodo being cut short on screen, just because of behind the scenes politics or something. Sorry, so the Fourth Doctor? What am I on about? Have I misspoken again, unfortunately? Also, Stephen in the chat also improving it by listening to what the fans have said about it, both positive and negative. The Inchiton incident, like the Demon Song, is trying to put the First Doctor in an environment that you typically wouldn't see him in his tenure of the show, where he is in a post-war thriller. It's a spy thriller. He's trying to get behind enemy lines, and he's trying to sneak his way in, and there's some gadgets, and there's some fun tomfoolery. Fourth Doctor and Dodo, that would be interesting. Tom Baker and Lauren Cornelius, Big Finish, make it happen. Make it that's something that they can do. Anyway, I'm rambling and I'm getting off on tangents, and I'm quite tired. I apologise. Cast are great overall, and the ending of the Inchiton incident allows for an interesting future for the First Doctor range. It ends on a cliffhanger, I should say. I think that's kind of all I can say without fully giving everything away. But I'm glad that it not only promises a different type of future for the First Doctor range, but that we have more of the First Doctor range to go just in general. I'm looking forward to Volume 3 of these adventures with Stephen Noonan, and hopefully Lauren Cornelius carries on as well. They're a great pairing, great companion pairing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Stephen does in Once and Future, since he's been added to the cast over the past week. Relationship with Genevieve's character is fantastic, and yes, we did record together. And then I asked Nicholas to put in another one we've recorded that you don't know about yet. Excellent stuff. Somebody in the chat as well said that Genevieve Gaunt also voices Lady Penelope in the Thunderbird set, so she seems like a Big Finish mainstay. I think overall, out of the Demon Song and the Outlaws, and not to compare Big Finish box sets to Big Finish box sets, because that's just a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. And I do appreciate the Demon Song doing something so drastically different to the Outlaws, in that it takes the First Doctor and puts them in completely new environments with completely new supporting casts. But I personally preferred the Outlaws overall to the Demon Song, but that's not to undersell the Demon Song. This was a really good box set. As someone who has been watching an awful lot of William Hartnell stories recently, this fit right in terms of like the performances and Stephen Noonan's portrayal, the type of stories and the vibes. This was a really, really good box set, and this has become a really strong, consistent range so far that I do highly recommend. I do think, like I said, I prefer the Outlaws in terms of the overall story series, generally speaking, but I think that Stephen Noonan and Lauren Cornelius, that they are really hitting their stride as these characters. They're giving better performances. They're interacting with each other better. They're much more clearly more comfortable with each other and building a rapport, working with Stephen Noonan's propensity to improvise and flub lines behind the scenes. I've been listening to the behind the scene interviews for the Demon Song. That sounds like an awful lot of fun. There's some fun flubs. Some of them we can tell are deliberate from the Doctor. He calls Virginia Veronica numerous times, but I think that's just to annoy her. So yeah, this fits right in during like my Hartnell marathon. These are two really good sets. I preferred the Outlaws, but the Demon Song is absolutely no slouch either. And I think with the setting and the characters, Nicholas Briggs with his writing and his direction is in really comfortable territory. You know, coastal town, post-war, espionage, and setting up for the future of the First Doctor range. Yeah, this is really, it was really good listening. I really enjoyed the Demon Song. I do recommend this, but definitely start with the Outlaws.